Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Paint a Mini. I have been putting it off for far too long, so why don't we just knock out the Pinky Demon from the Reaper Doom miniatures. Now I've got just a base coat on there of any sort of white color, any sort of pure white or whatever you want to do. It doesn't particularly matter. You can do a spray primer, you can do a brush primer, whatever is most comfortable for you, but just a solid white there. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get that pink going. Why don't we get the pink going on that pinky? Now it's going to be a very, very bright pink at first, but don't worry about it. I'm actually going to be using the Army Painter brand of paints here, and I'm going to be using Warlock Purple. Now that may seem kind of strange. You're thinking, well, why are you using such a bright layer of pink for the very first layer on the skin tone? Well, you'll see as we go, but yeah. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use Warlock Purple, which is basically just this bright pink color for all of the skin. Try not to do anything with the mouth. You can do like, around the mouth and all that. Basically the chin and the jaw. And you can use any brush that you're comfortable with. You can just use, you can use a larger brush, you can use a smaller brush, just whatever is the most comfortable for you that will help you get it done the most efficiently. So just knock out this Warlock Purple and then move on. Alright, well there we go. Now we've got a very, very, very bright pink, bubblegum pink Pinky Demon right there. It's very, very bright and very striking, but we are going to soften it up a little bit. Now, as you can see, I didn't worry too much about details. I got a little bit of paint onto the, the talons and the base and all that. Don't even worry about it, because we're going to go over all of that stuff with a different color later on. So I'm going to rinse off my brush, but I just realized I have no water. So I'm going to go get some water. I'll be right back. Alright, now I've got a nice little thing of water right here on the side. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get the interior of the mouth, and I want to start with a darker red color. So what I'll start with is the same Army Color brand paints. I'm going to use some Crusted Soar. This is like a dark red, almost purplish kind of color, but I think it'll be a pretty good base coat for the mouth. Another thing that I sort of decided that I wanted to do with this miniature is I've been very heavily reliant on washes and quick shades lately, and I kind of want to just go back to basics a little bit. So I'm just going to be using all dry brushing techniques for all of our shading on this particular miniature. I know that some people don't really like that. I know some people are like, no, if you did all dry brushing, but you need a wash on there. You know what? That's fine. That's okay if you want to, use your brush, use your quick shades and your washes for every miniature that you do. And honestly, that's how you get the really, really good paint jobs. But sometimes, I don't know, it's good for the work ethic to rely on some dry brushing every now and then. Toki Wartooth, can I help you? You're just walking by? You got your butt in my face, cat. Can you not do that, actually? And again, I'm not really worried about using a particularly detailed brush, because we are just going to get a nice even color across the whole mouth. And don't worry about going over the teeth as well. That'll be A-okay. Alright, there you go. So now you just got a nice dark red mouth right there. It is very dark, but that is the kind of thing that we're looking for. So I'm going to rinse that brush off. I also want that to completely dry before I do anything else with it. So why don't we move on to, that'll be fine. Why don't we move on to the rest of the skin tone? And in order to soften up that skin, in order to get it to look a little bit more flesh-like, what we'll take is we'll take out some Barbarian Flesh, and we'll use that to dry brush over the entirety of the skin. Alright, so I will just take out a dry brush right here, and I'm just going to get some paint onto my bristles, going to wipe off most of it, and obviously that's why they call it dry brushing, because the paint on your bristles is almost dry. Alright, and now we're just going to go over all of the skin tone with this Barbarian Flesh color, and I think that will substantially soften it up a little bit, make it look a little bit, like I said, a little bit more flesh-like, which if we look at the, the original sprite for the Pinky Demon itself, yeah, it is, obviously pink, but it's more like pink as in, the flesh tone of pink than anything. So we're going to try to emulate that. We're going to try to get an actual skin tone going for the Pinky Demon here, but with a nice sort of pink saturation to it. All right. And that is the sort of coloration that we're looking for there with that Pinky Demon. Like I said, he's nice and pink, but it's more of like a pink, you know, fleshy sort of color scheme, which is, I think, a really good combination if you start with that, you know, that layer of pink or Warlock purple or whatever sort of shade of pink that you want, and then you do a really, really nice flesh tone dry brushed over that, and that'll give you the color scheme that you're looking for. So I like that. I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm going to rinse off my dry brush. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to lighten up that mouth a little bit. So I'll take out some Dragon Red. It's not like, you know, a bright, burning, you know, pure red color, but it is a lighter shade of red. And if we just, you know, very quickly, very lightly dry brush the mouth with that Dragon Red color, then that should brighten it up a fair amount. Don't worry about the teeth. Obviously, like I, you know, have said and will keep saying, we are going to do the teeth and the claws after the fact, so don't worry about that. My dry brush is kind of wet still, so sometimes if you're going to be, you know, going from one dry brush step directly to another and you rinse off your brush in between, then you really want to make sure that your dry brush is totally dry. So as you can see, there's a lot of smearing and smudging. That's just because there's still water trapped in the bristles of the dry brush. So sometimes you might just need to do this a little bit more. Another thing that might help is if you've got like an actual paper towel, you know, actually wipe it off a little bit. That might help a little bit too, depending on you know, whether or not you use your dry brush in the step before and whether or not it's, you know, really dry. All right. And yeah, like I said, we're just going to really quickly, you don't need to spend too much time on it, just sort of dry brush, basically the tongue. The tongue is going to be the really big thing, and maybe the sides of the mouth, maybe the lips. Yeah, with a Dragon Red a little bit, and that'll just lighten up the mouth just a little bit. And there we go, that just adds a little bit of coloration to the actual mouth. So that looks pretty cool. I'm gonna rinse that off now. Next up, why don't we finally knock out all those teeth and those horns that we've been talking about, and I think I'm gonna use some Desert Yellow for that. It's like a really grimy, sort of like a dark mustard color. It's a little bit of a green tint, and we've used it to do some like green effects on some other miniatures previously, but in this case we're gonna be using it for that sort of like off-white, you know, like I said, dark mustard yellow sort of color. I would use a slightly smaller brush since you're going to be going over the teeth. You might want to just make sure to use a little bit of a more detailed brush. Nothing too fancy or serious, but just a little bit smaller, a little bit more. Not like a, you know, super high detail brush or anything like that, but yeah, just something that's a little bit smaller. And I'm going to start with the bottom row of teeth because those are a lot smaller than everything else, and I would like to do that while my brush still has a pretty good point on it. There we go, now we've got that nice row of teeth on there, so that looks pretty cool. And then I'll start with the top three teeth. Such a strange sort of upper row of teeth here, just like three really, really big sort of tusks. Never seen a creature design like that. I don't know if the sculptor did that on purpose. I, you know, am even struggling off the top of my head because I don't have a picture of the pixel art in front of me of the original Pinky Demon. I don't even know if the pixel art has three big tusk teeth on the top row of its mouth. Maybe it does, and maybe that's why they decided to do this the way it does. But it's just a strange anatomical evolution kind of thing. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but that's okay. That's what we've got, and that's what we're working with. There we go, so now those teeth are especially menacing. All right. So now we're just gonna get the horns up here. All right, so now the horns are on there. Yeah, it's like the pink, you know, it's a very, very bright color, but if we dry brush a fairer color over it, that'll kind of soften it up a little bit. So I'm just gonna get the little claws, little talons on his feet here, and then we're gonna be done with this color. All right, easy as that. So now we've got the claws and the talons, all that good stuff. I can't really tell. I mean, like, I don't think that he's supposed to have like claws on his actual hands there, or if he does, then the fact that he's got his hands like balled up into fists like that, I think that it doesn't really matter too much. So after we're done with that, I'm gonna rinse the brush off. Next up, while that desert yellow color is drying, I am going to get started on the base here, and I kind of want my base to be consistent with all of the other Reaper Doom miniatures that we've painted thus far. So I'm going to take out some Necromancer Cloak. It's just a very dark gray color. And we're just going to go over the entire base with that color. And again, you don't need to worry about using a detailed brush for that, obviously. Just make sure that you don't get the talons, the claws that are on his feet. That's pretty much the biggest thing to keep an eye out for. But that's pretty much it. So yeah, you can just use a larger brush for that and just go over the whole base. All right, there we go. So now we just got a nice dark gray base on there, and then we're going to go over that with a lighter color afterwards as well. Make sure that I got every little spot there. I think that I did. Okay, so I'm going to rinse off my brush. And next up, in order to finish up all those teeth, I'm going to take out some mummy robes, and then we are just going to lightly go over all of the teeth and claws and talons and all that good stuff, and then we're going to be done with that. And then we're going to be almost done with the miniature. I need to get the eyes, and then we're going to dry brush the base, but that'll be just about it. And then if you want to, you could take, well, I'll address that when I get there. For now, yeah, let's take out our dry brush, and let's go over all of the teeth and claws and all that good stuff with this mummy robes color. Again, just very lightly. You don't need to do anything too obvious. You kind of just want to soften up that, yellowish, greenish color a little tiny bit. If you start with that really, really, really bright that really, really striking desert yellow color, and then you go over it with a sort of like softer, whitish color afterward, that should give it the sort of like bony claw look that you're looking for. There we go, a little something like that for the claws, and then we're going to do the same thing with the teeth. Again, you barely want to, it might take, it'll take a couple of minutes just because you don't want to just splotch your brush onto the miniature. You want to go over it very, very lightly, and you want to try to make sure not to get any white on the other spots that you've already painted, like on the lips and on the skin tone and all that. If you get a little bit on there, it's not going to be a big deal, but just try to keep your bristles on the teeth only, and you'll be okay. It's going to be a little bit hard to get it on the bottom row of teeth without getting it on the tongue a little bit, but that's okay. If anything, that'll just sort of make it look like some light is reflecting off of the sort of wetness of the tongue a little bit, so that'll be just fine. Yeah, see? You can kind of see, like I said, that I'm getting a little bit of white on the tongue there. But if anything, it's just sort of making it look a little bit extra glowy or reflecty, so it's no big deal. It'll be just fine. All right, and then we're going to lightly go over each little toe and talon, and that'll be it. There we go, and then that way we've just got a little bit of a fairer color on the actual toes there. So we're going to rinse that off, and then next up we're going to go over the base. You know what, actually, before we go over the base, because that still might be a little bit wet, if you're, just going directly from one step to the other like I'm doing right now, why don't we just go on to the eyes, because we're just going to do one color for the eyes. We're not going to do anything too crazy for those. Well, actually, let's do a couple of colors for the eyes, because why not? We're only doing one miniature here. It's not like we're doing, a whole bunch of miniatures all at once with a board game. We're taking our time and we're having a good time here. So why don't we do a little bit of something special for the eyes like we've done for all the other Reaper miniatures. Why don't we take out some lava orange? This is just a regular old orange color, and we're just going to dot the entirety of the eyes, of each eye, rather, with this color. I will go ahead and start using a smaller detailed brush for this one. Not something like super duper tiny, extra teeny tiny little crazy detail, but something that's just a little bit more detailed. Just make sure to get a nice, even, round orange color on each eye. You can even get, surrounding it just a little tiny bit. There we go, so now those are just a little bit orange. Simple as that. All right, and then that brush is very, very easily rinsed off. And now we'll move on to our demonic yellow color. Another thing where you just need a very, very small amount of paint, nothing special. And then we'll just dot basically the very centers of each eye with demonic yellow, and that will give those glowing yellow eyes the color scheme that we're looking for. And there we go. So now they've just got a nice glowy yellow color, and that's the sort of color scheme that we're looking for. That looks pretty cool. I like that a lot. All right, and then to finish that up, we're just going to dry brush the base, and then we're pretty much done, except for one tiny thing that I'll go over in a minute here. And to finish off that base, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out some ash gray, and then we're just going to dry brush the entirety of the base with that gray color. You know what? Shoot, I was just kind of noticing that I got a little bit... I wiped off a little bit of paint on the tops of the spine right there. So what I'll do, as long as my paint is still wet, which it looks like it is a little bit, I'll just go over the tops of those with that Warlock Purple. Like so. And then without even wiping the brush off, I think I'll just go directly into the Barbarian Flesh, which is a little bit more dry, but that's okay. And then I'll just touch those up. A little something like that. Okay. Yeah, I was violating my own rule, and that's that I was grabbing the miniature at from angles that I shouldn't be grabbing it at. That's actually why I've got it on this base like this, is so that I don't have to worry about grabbing it from every which angle and all that. Okay, so now we got our ash gray out. I'm going to get my dry brush here, and we're just going to dry brush the base very quickly. And there we go. So now we've just got a little bit of coloration in the base there, and that just adds a little bit of variety there. That's pretty much it for all the major stuff regarding the Pinky Demon. Although the very last thing that I'm going to do is, if you notice at the original, sprite for the miniature, the original, pixel art, you'll notice that, focus, please. There we go. You'll notice that there's some blood on the teeth, just a little bit. Nothing too striking, but just a little bit of blood on the teeth. So why don't we go ahead and do that? I am going to break out stuff that I haven't broken out in a long time here because I just have been neglecting it, but I love it so much. I'm going to break out my Citadel brand, Blood for the Blood God. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be the best thing that you could possibly get for any sort of blood. And we don't want anything too striking or obvious. So what I'll do is I'll just take out like let's just take out, it's sort of like a no-name brush right here. It's got some flayed edges a little bit. Get a little bit of paint onto the very tip of the brush. Nothing too fancy. Wipe off most of it like that. I'll close the lid on that. All right. And then just very lightly sort of tap some blood onto the teeth. Like so. And if you want, you can even kind of go over spots of the mouth that look like should be, a little bit red or covered up or something like that. You can even get a little bit of blood coming down the lip just a little bit. Nothing too fancy, just sort of lightly spot some of this stuff here and there. I'm going to get the underside of the tongue a little bit. Moisten that up a little bit. Moisten? I don't think that's a word, but I'm making it a word right now. Moisten. To make moist. There we go. And that will pretty much do it. So, yeah, I would say that is one decent little Pinky Demon right there from the Reaper Doom miniatures. If you like the video, go ahead and throw it a like. If you want to see the rest of the Reaper Doom miniatures getting painted, very, very slowly, admittedly, because I've got another channel right now that I have called Easy Mini Painting, and that's where I do a lot of my miniature painting videos nowadays. I post a new video to that channel every week, and right now I'm going through all of the Resident Evil 2 miniatures, and I'm on the alternate sculpts that you can get. I've already completed the core game, but that's a separate thing. You don't have to go over there if you whatever. No big deal. But yeah, that's it. So I won't take up any more of your time. Let me know if you want to see which Reaper Doom miniature you want to see next. I'm probably going to do either the Lost Soul or the Revenant next. I haven't really decided, but I'll probably do one of them. But I won't take up any more of your time, so thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time, everyone. Bye.